center field. Going back is Gonzalez. It is gone! Two-run home run by Schwarber. Stays put, and there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
And we are back for another episode of the Double Switch podcast. Mid-June, it's kind of the time of the year where once we get to October, we're going to look back and we're probably not going to remember anything from these past couple of weeks. All-Star games coming up. It's a weird time of the year, but the Phils are playing good. It's really hot here in New Jersey. Summer is clearly here, and I'm hoping that some of these guys on the team kind of heat up with the temperature. Plenty of guys who are still struggling, and we're kind of wondering when they're going to get back on track, but there's some good signs too. How are you doing today, Johnny?
I'm doing great, man. Phils look like they're back to winning consistently. I got no complaints here, except for the humidity. I hate this humidity.
Yeah, humidity stinks. Some interesting stuff going on, I think.
A lot.
And it's stuff that you wouldn't really expect out of this Phillies team. You know, we have a team of veteran players. Topper has kind of his firm grasp on the clubhouse. So when there's some tension within the clubhouse between people, it's going to kind of blow up and become a big deal because it just doesn't really happen here. It's a team that's very mature, and we generally don't let those things get to us, but it happens. And the most recent case has been Nick Castellanos and Topper, Phillies manager. He was kind of being proactive on the defensive front, took Nick Castellanos out of the game. Nick loves to play baseball. If there's one thing you can say about Nick, he wants to play. And he didn't take too kindly to it, said some stuff that Topper considered a little past the line. You're allowed to kind of voice your opinion, but you have to do it in a way that is respectable. And presumably what he said was not respectable. I don't think anything's been leaked about what he did say. But nonetheless, not a super good look. And what's your take on this? And do you think this is something that is going to kind of just linger around?
No, I don't think it's going to linger. I think this has been kind of blown out of proportion to kind of a weird extent. Topper had made a logical choice taking him out Miami has a massive outfield. It was a close game. There's a lot of guys that haven't got in lately. Felt like a good time to get a defensive replacement. Nick, emotional guy, as we expect, says something about it. Not mad about that either. Had to sit out the game. Kind of stinks that he broke his streak and his family was all at that game. But I think it's more of a thing that Topper's trying to set a precedent that we've had the same team do the same thing the past 3 years. And I think he kind of wants to light a fire under guys and just let them know that if they don't perform well, there's people behind them that could take their spots. Was Nick Castellanos the best example should he have made an example out of Nick specifically? I don't know. But I like that he is making the veterans a little bit uncomfortable here.
Yeah, so 3 thoughts on this. Thought number 1, I like the defensive replacement for Castellanos. You can slice it and dice it, no matter which stat you like. He's a very bad defender. I see like a proportion of people saying like just denying it, but the thing about that you have to understand about him on the defensive front is he can catch stuff that he can get to, but he really doesn't get to much. So it looks like he's just out there doing his job, running balls down, but he doesn't have really good range. He doesn't have a really good first step. He doesn't have a good, accurate arm. He might have it's a strong arm, but it's not accurate. And late in the games, you want all 3 of those, and you want a guy who can kind of deter base runners from taking the extra base. So I think all that makes sense. I don't disagree with that at all. I just, it's kind of weird that it's just like now, like he's always been like kind of a rough defender. Like
weird timing.
Yeah, the timing's a little off there. I think Nick is having a hard time taking that stance that he's not a good defender. He's a very, very confident individual. I think that there's probably room for improvement with how that was communicated to him. I just think, if you're putting the team first, he's got to understand that. And I think he does. I think he's a team first player. I don't think he's a guy who really wants to put himself before the team. So I just think that this probably could have been done in a little better of a way. And I think we could have avoided kind of the awkward storylines that are kind of coming about now. Obviously we don't know what he said. What he said might change our viewpoint on this. I'm assuming he was just chirping Topper, and he may have commented on something that he shouldn't have. But, I respect the fire. He wants to get out there and play. I think he might be the most divisive player the Phillies currently employ, because you go on Twitter and it is 50-50. 50% of people think Topper's great for standing up for him. The other 50% say, why are you ruining the streak? Casty just wants to win. He's not even bad out there. Look what Kepler did. He's not any better. It's always funny to see how the reactions fall for these type of situations.
Yeah, it really is. But at the end of the day, like, you look at Topper's point of view, he wants to make the team better in the late innings defensively, because we're a bottom 5 defensive team all around the board. And you look at Casty's point of view, like, I was kind of had the perspective that, like, Castellanos kind of has to wake up and smell the roses, that he's not a great defender. But as a professional athlete, you don't want to do that. You want to remain confident in your defense. You don't want to, like, just throw in the towel as a defender. So I understand his fire and his backlash, but I think we're going to move past it. I really don't think it's a lingering thing. I think we just like to talk about stuff.
Yeah, the thing that's going to happen now, and if I know Phillies fans, I'm positive this is going to happen. Every time Kepler does anything bad in the outfield, it's going to come back up. Anytime Nick does anything good in the outfield, it's going to come back up. It's just, I wish we could just flush it down the toilet and forget about it, because I don't think it's going to end up mattering. But it was surprising to see.
Yeah.
Would you mind cueing the music for trivia time? Johnny, the Phillies, or I should introduce the stat first. DRS, defensive runs saved, is a stat that came about in 2003. Who is the Phillies franchise leader in DRS? Presumably it would be a player after 2003, because that's when they started tracking it. You don't get any strikes for this. You get one guess. It's 8-6U.
Well, I'm in between two, obviously, but I'm going to go Chase Utley.
Damn. Yeah, it's Chase Utley.
Was Jimmy second?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Man, you're up to date on your defensive stats too. Chase with 130.
Make that 9-6.
132 to Jimmy's 59.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
Chase could pick it.
Crazy, actually.
Yeah, 9-6U. The days of a 32 DRS season that Chase had in 08 are probably not in the cards for any of these current players. I went down the rabbit hole.
Crazy.
I went down the rabbit hole of how the stats actually line up this year, and Bryson's stats very good at second. Rojas is very good, but there's a lot of negatives on that list, and it's guys you wouldn't really expect, like Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos. Well, you expect Nick Castellanos. Bryce Harper, Max Kepler is negative. It just, I thought we were making some progress there, and it's disappointing to see us kind of go backwards.
Yeah, no, we're definitely not a good defensive team. That's just objectively true, but it's what it is. Hopefully we hit our way out of it. Yeah,
for sure. Back to the current team. Injuries kind of seem to be piling up at this point. We have some
lingering
big name guys who are dealing with stuff. I guess most notably right now would be Bryce Harper. Wrist is kind of, I don't totally understand what's going on with his wrist.
I mean, if you look at Dombrowski's latest comments, I think it was 2 days ago, he said that Bryce Harper is clear to play and swing. It's just kind of up to him at this point.
So, do you have the specific injury?
No, I don't think they're being very vocal.
It was very vague. He was having wrist problems. That might explain some of the. Bryce hasn't been bad by any means, but 258 average, power's been. It's okay. He hasn't looked quite like the Bryce Harper we were expecting. Do you think this kind of gets him back on track, getting this figured out and healed?
I don't think it's. I think the weird part about this injury is I don't think it's one of those things you fully heal, and I don't think it stays that way. I think it's every day he plays, he'll probably be a little bit sore from it. I just think it's one of those lingering type things. So I am concerned about that. Uh, but when he comes back, I'm sure he'll be playing to at least 90% of his capabilities, which is better
Yeah,
than most people in baseball.
it's a crappy thing to hurt as a hitter.
It is, especially with it's the same as the elbow, same side.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with anything that moves in the swing like that. You usually end up seeing that on the power side. So hopefully Bryce can get healthy. The other big one right now is Nola, who started out with just an ankle sprain, which we were like, oh, smooth sailing. Give him a little refresh. He'll be back in no time. And then we were alerted to his rib, which is, I want to say it's like I don't know the right word. Like it's fractured in some. It's a stress
fracture. So it's like a hairline type fracture.
Yeah, which is weird because that's not his ankle. He presumably hasn't been throwing, so it leads you to believe that this happened at some point. Probably this year, I guess. And then you start asking the question of what did this affect? Because Nola did not look good at for the most part the entire stretch that he was healthy. He did not look good at all. Velo was struggling. I don't know how much a rib. It's tough to tell what type of
Rib
an
affects
impact.
everything, man.
Yeah,
just moving and breathing.
I don't even know where the rib is. Do you know where it is on his
I'm guessing either his left or his right side?
Yeah, like I guess you feel that when you lift your arm up or if you're tucking your glove in on the follow through. So now it's like
it's a weird one.
Yeah, it's like, is this like, should we be really optimistic now that he's, we found something that kind of points to pitching at least, or should we feel bad because now we're looking at Nola, who's on the 60-day IL, and we're probably not going to see him till after the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and I think if there was one year where Nola we could afford to have Nola gone for this amount of time, it's this year, because our rotation right now is set. It's fine. No one's really worried about it, the way things are going with Mick Abel, and if Mick Abel starts to struggle, we have Taijuan Walker. So honestly, I think couldn't be a better time for Nola just to get right and be an asset for us, healthy and hopefully back to normal at the other half of the All-Star break. But yeah, it really does make you think: is Nola going to get back to like regular form? Was this what did it? Tough to tell with the guy because he's so silent. He just doesn't tell anyone anything.
Yeah. So he'll be back in the second half. The way I initially thought of it is we've had a lot of questions about some of the lefties in the starting rotation, their durability, and you're probably going to get back the most before this injury, the most innings eater type pitcher in the second half of the season when a lot of teams kind of need that influx of innings. It's around the trade deadline. It's when people are going to get pitchers. Is Aaron Nola suddenly our trade deadline acquisition? That's a big time arm to get back and have for the stretch run. And for the first time in a long time, he'll be somewhat fresh for October. That's always a talking point. We kind of use him up a lot during the season. We kind of rely on him in a way that, it's unique in this game. And I'm just very curious just to see how fresh he looks, how he can kind of maintain his performance deeper into the season now that he's had a couple months off. I think it's ultimately a good thing. And
I agree.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
No, I agree with that. It's just like you were saying, like the beginning of the season, we were talking about how this depth we have with the lefties could be like a really good thing come the second half. Because like how the Dodgers can just let people go on the injured list, come back in like August or September, and then they just have like fresh arms. I think we thought that would be maybe Ranger or Luzardo, having to give them a little break. But ends up being Nola here. So it's a good thing, I think, as long as he recovers.
It's still weird not seeing him every 5 days. It's going to take me a while to get used to that.
It is strange.
But
the guys are doing their job.
Yeah, they really are. The rest of the pitching staff has been pretty awesome for the most part. Wheeler's Wheeler. He's just counting down the days till he starts cashing out that retirement pension. It's coming soon, apparently, a couple years now. Luzardo figured out his pitch tipping problem. That's good. He didn't look super good against the Marlins. Not a huge deal. I still feel okay about him. Ranger has come back and he looks awesome. He looks awesome, and I've seen a bunch of stuff on Twitter about how we should have given Ranger the money. That's how awesome he's looked, relatively speaking. He came back and he looks like the first month of the season last year, Ranger. I think it's really a freshness thing for him. And Christopher Sanchez, walks are kind of trending down. Solid front four right now, and I feel really good about them just going forward.
Yeah, Ranger being at this form in June is really such a powerful thing for us, because if we decide that we trust that Nola comes back healthy, we trust that Painter can make an impact, maybe you do trade him, because the way he's pitching, he's a valuable asset to a lot of teams. You look at teams like the Yankees and Giants. The Giants have a good rotation right now, but there's a lot of teams that would love to have the services of Ranger Suarez.
He's going to be a fascinating free agency.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
When's the last time you had a pitcher as effective as he is that throws like 92 hit the open market? It's very weird.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, probably since
I guess Chris Bassett.
He's a lot older. He got paid. Yeah, kind of got paid too.
He did. He got pretty much the same deal as Taiwan.
Yeah, I don't know who the best comp for him is, but I think that he's earning himself some money right now. He's looked simply awesome. And then rounding out the rotation, Mick Abel. He's learning, he's growing, and he's been pretty effective as he's doing it. I don't think he's a finished product, and I think the ERA is probably going to continue to trickle up, which is normal. He's probably overperformed a little bit, but I think that he shows promise in the back end of the rotation where you usually kind of don't see that upside. So I'm thrilled with how he's performing right now, and the longer he can kind of keep doing this, the more flexibility we have. Yeah,
truly. It's been a pleasant surprise, but I think me and you have alluded to it, but he does get hit hard. He doesn't really attract that soft contact like a lot of our guys, like our changeup guys that we have. But the results we're getting good results, and he's also building his trade value.
He is. Unfortunately, I think front offices are probably going to look at the StatCast data over the ERA, which is, I think it's low twos right now.
Maybe.
I think he could be a really good reliever. I think he can start, but I think he'd be a killer reliever.
I agree. I think him coming in a little high because he could probably bring up his velocity a little bit.
He could probably pump for one inning,
because his 96 looks so easy. He could definitely rip 98 if we asked him to.
Yeah, later in the season we have 5 healthy pitchers and Andrew Painter. Control Mick Abel's innings. Maybe he could step into that role. Who knows?
I think there's a couple guys right now that we could. I think Ranger, Sanchez, and Abel. We could have a discussion about all of them going to the bullpen. Yeah,
definitely. But pitching's good. Offensively, we need Bryce Harper back. It's painfully obvious that the lineup is just not as scary without him.
Shout out to Trey, though.
Some guys have really stepped up. Trey's taken on the superstar guy in the lineup you really don't want to beat you type role. He has looked every bit of the Trey Turner I was hoping for. Not that I was necessarily expecting, but this is the outcome that I was hoping, and best possible outcome for Trey Turner. Power is actually back too. He looks okay in the field, nothing crazy. Contact hitter, awesome stuff. I'm very, very happy for Trey Turner.
Yeah, I kind of had like a flashback, deja vu to the World Baseball Classic, seeing him crush baseballs in Miami. It's like, oh my God, Captain America's back.
He gets a swagger about him when he's doing what he's doing now. You can tell he's comfortable.
Yeah, it seems like his swing plane is just perfect right now. Has that line drive. swing working.
We should probably start collecting apologies now on Alec Boehm's behalf for everybody who was out on him, everybody who said he stinks, we should have traded him, play Edmundo at third, play Otto Kemp at third, play anybody, get somebody from the stands to play third. We heard it all about Alec Boehm, and look at that. He's batting 300. He has more homers than Casty. He has he's been good with runners in scoring position. Sure, he still hits the ball on the ground too much, but this is Alec Boehm that we saw last year, and this is the good version of Alec Boehm that we know exists. We know this version exists. It's in there. He just needed some time to get it going. Really nice to see him in the lineup because there's some guys seriously struggling and just they were kind of starting to add up. We needed somebody to kind of come through and figure it out, and he seems to be the guy doing that.
Yeah, but I think the silver lining of like the season so far is that not everyone's struggling at once. Because like when Turner and Boehm were struggling a bit, you had Schwarber crushing the baseball. And now that you have Schwarber struggling and Bryson Stott struggling, you have Brandon Marsh, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm crushing the ball. So it's been staggered out very nicely. So, and then hopefully Bryce gets back and end of the season, we kind of just mesh together and off to the races.
Is Bryson Stott like a MLB starter?
I don't know. I think he has. I mean, if you're watching the game, I mean, I think if you're watching the games lately, he is having really good at bats. He talked about it after the game, and it's just not getting the results. And then last night he went, I think it was 2 for 3 with a 3-run home run. Looked really good. It really is. It's just when he gets his pitch to do the right thing with it, because he has had that patient approach. He just hasn't been able to tack on the good pitches. It is discouraging to see him have like this bad of a year, but I still think he's our guy this year. So to talk about him being a major league talent, he is our major league second baseman. So we're rolling with him.
Yeah, it's very WIP of me to say that, but I'm starting to just look at the production, and I have this idea in my head of who Bryson Stott can be, but it keeps coming up really, really short. The average is bad. He's never going to hit a lot of homers. I think he's on like a 10-homer pace. OPS is in the high 600s.
Yeah, but I mean, you know how baseball is. Like this next 2 weeks could be his breakout. A lot of guys have it later in the season. Look at Marsh. Marsh now has pretty good numbers. I think he's hitting like 260 with like a 700 OPS. We were ready to cut him, designate him for free agency, and now he's middle of the league center fielder. So I could see the same thing happening for Stott. Honestly, that's half the reason I keep Stott in my fantasy team, because I know that every player gets a chunk of a hot streak at some point in the season, and I think Stott's is going to be pretty soon.
Yeah, I think there's two reasons that I don't share that kind of opinion. I like Bryson Stott, and I like the profile. For someone who, for like the prototype of the player and hitter that he is, it feels like a player that should not have such lows. He's a contact hitter. Like usually he's ice cold right now. And usually the contact hitters who kind of spray it all over the field, like they don't really have those stretches. So that's surprising on one front. And two,
I don't think he's the type of contact hitter that just like, because there's a type of contact hitter like the Luis Arias, who he's the kind of guy who swings early, often puts the ball in play, low strikeout rate, that sort of thing. Stott's the kind of guy that sees a ton of pitches. He's not necessarily swinging early and often. He's running counts deep, and then the biggest part about his game, which is going to make or break his whole entire MLB career, is if he can impact the pitches he's looking for.
That's two. That's point number 2 that you just bring up. When things are going well for Bryson Stott, he just does not hit the ball hard. It's just a hard ceiling on the impact that he can have. So you couple like the highs and lows with the just poor poor exit velocities and lack of ability to really impact the ball. And I'm starting to kind of just wonder like what we really have here. Yeah, it's nice to see him taking pitches. That's great. But I find myself just seeing him take a bunch of pitches and then do nothing. So
Yeah, I think that is exactly what's going on.
I leave the at bat feeling underwhelmed. I kind of think that like the status quo that I think he should be is Nico Horner. I think that's a terrific comp for him, a lefty Nico Horner. But unfortunately, he's too passive to be Nico Horner. Nico Horner is a better hitter, but he swings a lot more, and I think that's the kind of that's what I want him to do. He's never going to hit a ton of homers, and I don't want him to sell out for power, but his passive approach, I don't know if that's quite going to help. It's also probably going to be hard to get out of streaks with that because he's not putting together there's not much to get him going. He's just going up there and kind of waiting for his pitch and fouling stuff off. It's weird to gauge it, and I'm just finding myself underwhelmed more than I thought I would be.
I mean, I think it's because Stott was a first-round pick, and everyone kind of saw him being a star. And I think we have to kind of realize that he's going to be a role player this year. He's not in our top 5 best hitters. I don't know if he's in our top 7 best hitters. But he is a glue guy when it comes to defense on a really bad defensive team. He's a really good base runner. And if he does start to believe in the at-bats like he's talking about and starts to impact pitch, because he has a great eye, and if he can just know what he wants to do with the pitch that he gets, I could see him turning around the season to an extent. But obviously the ceiling is lower for Bryson Stott. It's like a 280 average with like a 750 OPS max.
Give me your season projections for Bryson Stott. Give me average homers and OPS.
What's he at right now?
We'll revisit this just to see, because every time I get on here, I talk about it, but like we don't have like a bar we set for him. He's at 237. Oh Jesus!
Yeah, it's been a rough go.
5 homers and a 642 OPS.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I would probably say he'll probably finish with 12 home runs, 275 average, and a 715 OPS.
I don't have a pen.
I do.
I'm gonna. Yeah, can you write that down?
What do you got?
I think he's a 250, 10 homer, 700 OPS guy, but I think Edmundo Sosa is the same thing. I think if you give Edmundo Sosa a full year at second base, I think he can do the same thing. I'm not saying we should, but we think of Edmundo Sosa as a role player, a bench piece.
Well, it's because, he is. Every time except for Turner's injury last year, every time you see Edmundo Sosa for more than 3 games straight, he proves to you that he's a bench player.
Edmundo Sosa, 263 average. Yeah. We're going to continue to debate this because I can tell that you still are very on board with Bryson Stott. I'm starting to kind of question.
Because
no, I'm not knocking you for
no. Just let me talk.
I see where you're coming from.
If this team is going to succeed, our biggest flaw is that we have players that have at bats like Castellanos and Real Muto in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and adding Edmundo Sosa to that sounds horrible.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with your logic at all.
We need him to get back to a middle ground. Obviously, he's at his lowest right now. Get him to that middle ground because at that middle point, he is a patient hitter and he can get on base at a high clip. So if this team's going to go far, he needs to get to we need him to get to that on base guy he used to be.
Yeah, that's also a problem. 302 on base percentage.
That is the biggest issue.
Even last year, 315.
What about the year? Well, last year was terrible. He was hurt.
2023 was 329, and it's better, but
yeah, we'll take that.
It's just to see all those pitches and just not find your way on base more. It seems like it's kind of not empty, but it's lacking kind of the final punch that you want out of that type of approach.
Definitely. I mean, and like, it's the kind of thing that, like, I think we've all been wanting it to happen for a long time, but once he starts capitalizing on these long at bats, then pitchers are less likely to. Then I think the walks come with it, you know?
Yeah. Big picture kind of idea here that goes along with that. I think that some of these hitters probably could use another voice.
Yeah, I don't know how much that's going to do.
I think Kevin Cash has hit his ceiling with a lot of these guys, and I think Bryce DeChambeau.
We don't have Kevin Cash on the Phillies.
Not Kevin Cash, Kevin Long. Kevin Cash is the Rays manager. Kevin Long has hit his ceiling with some of these hitters, and I think Bryce DeChambeau might just be one of those guys.
Yeah. As far as my knowledge, the hitting coach really just gives scouting reports to the players before each game. I don't think he really tells them what to do.
So how much role do you think he has in so if he's given the approach plan, I don't even know where the approach plan is coming from. I don't know. It just seems like Bryce has to kind of rethink this a little bit, rethink what he's doing, and find a different way to provide value. Because it's a lot of long at bats that end up not mattering ultimately. You're increasing.
And like he's talked about it recently, and it does seem like is very aware of it. Like he is having great at bats, but it's just that, like, those don't matter unless you capitalize. He hasn't capitalized.
I typically look at like how you're impacting the ball and like your expected stats, and it's tough to really do it with him. So I just can't gauge it. I have to kind of get other people's opinions, and it's a device. He's a divisive player, I feel like, but very interesting. Other than that, I think, the rest of the lineup's kind of coming along. JT has looked good. Otto's looked very good. Otto's going to start platooning with Kepler.
Saw that. I like that.
That's going to be I like that. I like that a lot. I know we talked about Kepler being a full-time player, but I changed my stance a little bit. I think he'd be better in a platoon role.
He doesn't hit lefties that well. Can't really sugarcoat it.
Twins were right. That's bold of us to think we know more than the Minnesota Twins baseball team. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything else for this episode. Anything else you want to highlight, touch upon?
No. I'm just hoping Bryce's kind of praying Bryce's injury isn't too real. I hope it's something he can heal from and be good to go the rest of the season, because this feels like a very wasted year if Bryce Harper's not healthy.
This is when he's supposed to be racking up the homers for the Hall of Fame case.
I know. It's how's he going to get to 500 home runs if he's not hitting them right now?
Yeah, you can't miss year 32. That's like that's prime year. We got to take advantage of that. Mets series this weekend, going to be fun.
Huge.
We got to get past
one game back from the Metis.
One game back from the Mets. We got to get past the Marlins today, which, we'll see how that goes.
We should.
But it's going to be a good series nonetheless. And it's kind of ending up to be a pretty close race between the Mets and the Phillies. Vote the Phillies into the All-Star game. Don't have to vote all of them because not all of them deserve it. But Trey Turner should absolutely be there. Very deserving. And I think a couple of our pitchers should be there too. Schwarber should be there. And we're like fifth in every position, which means the Phillies fans are not putting in the work.
Yeah. No, it's a shame you can't vote pitchers in. Stupid, I think.
That's stupid. Like,
why
are they treating them differently? Yeah.
I still don't understand that. Why can't we vote on a pitcher's stats? But if we could, I would vote our whole rotation right now because they're filthy.
Taiwan?
He's not in a rotation.
All right.
Not bullpen guys.
All right. I thought you meant the whole season rotation. Okay. Yeah, vote Phils. Other than that, I think that should do it for this episode. As always, thank you guys for listening, and we will be back to talk to you soon. Take care.
Go Phils.